the Ways and Means meeting to order. Sharita, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Here.
I'm ordered.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman,
No, it's
Alderman Odenberg.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Present.
And Chairman Vollmer.
Present.
9 present. You have quorum.
All right, we'll wait for the excused alderman until the end of the meeting. Approval of minutes, make a motion to approve the meetings of the June 11th.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of the last meeting,
Second.
whatever the date was.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And what we have before us here is Board Bill 1. And we have Mr. Payne discussing all our wish list that we sent to the mayor's office. And Board of E&A has gone through and dissected it, and I kind of preliminary got a view of it, and it looks like we got most of what we wanted. So I'll let him go through the explanation, and then we will open to questions. Go ahead,
Sure.
Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of the committee. What you have before you is a packet that E&A approved at yesterday's meeting in response to the request from this committee. There are also a couple of additional items on there, and I'll go through it. Well, I'll be working off of a summary page, which sort of highlights that, and behind the summary page are all the attachments with more detail. So on that summary page, the first item, where it's under the category, says response to Ways and Means. You can see the first item, Board of Aldermen, that was that request for the research, legislative researcher salary increase, and then the recorder position. That's the $88,000. The increase to the item second was the fire department, breathing apparatus supplies and contractual, that's $110,000. And the excise commissioner, your request that you had 2 positions, this one accommodates one of those, so it's $45,885. One of the other items, and I'll get in a little bit further detail, this is a request on the police department trying to restore the overtime reduction that you had. We identified some other sources for that, so that's what that item 4 is. Item 5, in your reductions on the use tax side on building demo, that was in the use tax side, and you're trying to increase things on the general fund side. So that so you have to keep the balance between the general fund and the use tax. So we're reducing the salaries on the general fund side and the police department, and increasing them on the use tax side. That's just a balancing act. There is no increase or decrease in budget as a result of that. Item 6 is one of the communications division's positions for the video production specialist that is in Fund 1117. Item 7 was a second communication division position for the tech development program. That's a separate cost center within that Fund 1117 fund. Item 8 that refers to the building division. This is an additional building inspector position. This is added to their building demo and board up fund. So that's where that would be added. So this will give them a little bit additional capacity for inspections. Item 9 on the circuit attorney's request. You requested that. This does not add in total to the budget, but what it does is they had a $75,000 increase in their contractual services with their Prop P funds. If you look at their budget, they had a $1.5 million budget last year. This year, with the receipts a little higher, it was close to $1.6 million. Well, we allocated those $75,000 increase higher than the request to their professional services. Because of the request saying, hey, we would like to have some additional funds for computer services, what we did instead was we moved that money from the contractual services up to a computer service line without increasing the overall budget. So that's how we address that. Item 10, this is the item addressing your violence prevention alternatives at $500,000. What this does is basically allocate from funds that the Department of Public Safety will be receiving from the U.S. Marshal, the Intergovernmental Service Agreement with the Marshal Service. That's budgeted at $3.7 million. It's for improvements and things to the corrections and particularly the Justice Center. So this allocates $500,000 of that for the Crime Prevention Alternatives Program. And there is, and if you look at the detail, and if you're interested in that, you'll see item 10 is in there. There is some specific language and criteria pertaining to that program. Also, it allows providing for transportation costs associated with that intergovernmental service agreement. So this language would be added to the Section 10 of Board Bill 1 to address what you would like to see within that Crime Prevention Alternatives Program. In addition to those Ways and Means requests, there were a couple other newer items. 11A and B, Forestry Division, there was one position being moved. This is the completion of the move from the debris program from Forestry to Streets Division. Item 12 is a newer item. That's Traffic Division needed to replace its Traffic Management Center contract. It was previously funded through grants. It's going to be expiring the coming year. And so that was an $85,000 item. There was a reduction in the citywide trans interest account. Simply, we're issuing less trans next year, so we shouldn't need as much in the interest payments. So that was sort of a balancing act between that. And then item 14 is the inclusion of all your ward capital detail for your ward capital fund. So remember, when we proposed the budget, we just had a lump sum number. We didn't have the detail from all the wards. But we have received the detail from the wards. We've also received the detail for the neighborhood parks. So those exhibits are attached. And so if you can see, that's the extent of the changes approved by ENA yesterday.
All right, thank you, Mr. Payne. Before we open up, this is, we're kind of under the gun time-wise. This is not something we're going to be sending back. I believe we need to go through this and question what's going on. If you have any questions of him, I believe all we could do today, if we wanted to do anything, we would make another cut, but we were not able to add anything to anything today for those of you not involved in the process before. So we will open up with questions with Madam Vice Chair, I'm sorry.
First of all, I wanted to thank our chairman because he has led a process I thought was very thorough and on our behalf when talking with the mayor's office and staff. I think one of the reasons why you saw so much of what we wanted brought back was because of his thoroughness and his willingness to push to get as much as possible.
It means I bothered him a lot.
Yeah, got on their nerves. So, but what I want to say is that for those of you, this is your first budget opportunity, this is probably, in my 12 years of budgeting, this is probably the second best that I've seen in 12 years come back. And so I really wanted to applaud our chairman, and I wanted to share that I do appreciate the understanding of the things that we were very sincere about. And this is just not the absolute end to anything. As you go through the year, you will find opportunities to do additional things that you may have had favor to. So, but what we must do is to make sure that the budget is passed on time, and we only have 3 weeks to keep it moving. And, Paul Payne has a special thing. Anybody that can survive 4 mayors, something special about him, okay? So they know he knows what he's doing, and I thank you as well, Paul. I'm done, sir.
All right. Alderman Vaccaro.
Thank God he's civil service, because then he can survive a lot more mayors. No, I'm pretty much happy. I'm glad you got the communication.
Will the press make a note of that?
Quick, move on.
Alert the media.
I'm glad that, I know we wanted to get the communications. I'm glad you sent over the letter after the fact, because we got past this in discussions. I'm pretty happy with it. I know we'll talk about it a little, but the vice chair is right. We have 3 weeks to get this over with any other changes, but the way it sits now, I think we got almost everything we wanted.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Howard.
Thank you very much for your tenacity, and thank you for your persistence, Chairman and Co-Chairman. I just I'm pleased with what we have. I know there's never enough. We can never make everybody happy. I'm sorry that some people are very disappointed with this, but I just wanted some clarification on the building commissioner. We've given him an extra position.
Yes.
As a compromise.
Yes.
As to, and they can use him at will
Yes.
if we need to use that for extra building inspections or to reinstate the rotation.
Yes.
Okay. I will note that, and thank you very much, and that's all I have.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one question in response to what she just said about the additional building inspector. I know initially there were some concerns and wants for the building inspectors to go around and not target, but kind of like do a blitz on demoing buildings. And I just hope that before we do that, we have some type of policy in place before we just release that one additional staff person out to fulfill some of those concerns.
Yeah, that came up briefly, and all, the building commissioner was at ENA yesterday. He sort of specified they would be very targeted in terms of how they go about it, and I'd defer to the commissioner to explain that a little bit more. But yeah, it
I
was,
think we could call them into public safety and have that discussion with the building division.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Madam Vice.
as he explained yesterday, it will only be by request of the alderman.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what I, okay, and secondly, can you explain to us again what the rationale was behind moving the money in the circuit attorney's office to address that need? Can you tell me how that came about possibly?
sure. Actually, I don't know if you have your, I don't see your line item in front of you. But this year, if you recall, last year was the first year they got that full year's appropriation of the Prop P fund. That was about $1.5 million. So it was over and above their base budget, for which they are able to spend on, at their discretion, for things that they would like to pursue in that office. This year, the allocation was up higher, so it's closer to $1.6 million. And since that was higher than the original base budget, that was a $75,000. If you look at the line item budget in here, there's a $75,000 increase. We just put it in professional services at their discretion. But having gotten a request saying, hey, well, we'd like to have more computer expenditures or more funds to address our computer needs, I think, well, maybe we should move that money that we added over and above the regular budget up to computer services. So that's what we did. And so you'll see that's what that amendment detail is behind the sum that address.
Thank you. And lastly, did we do anything with special events? I know that there were some concerns throughout the entire committee about.
Yeah, that was done here. So that's not something the ENA needed to act on. So you can see that that's still in here. And so that was reduced.
So it was just reduced
the
by
$40,000, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, once Ms. Chance is not there.
No further questions.
Right.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Murphy.
I don't have any questions because everybody took care of it. I want to thank you too. Everything ran so smoothly, sir. And Paul, as always, he's like a neighbor. So it's lovely. Everything always works so smoothly when you do. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Alderwoman Spencer.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Alderman Muhammad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, I want to go back over the circuit attorney's budget. Well, before I do that first, this committee requested 2 positions, a legislative researcher and a recorder position. And in the response given back from ENA, the legislative researcher was not funded.
No, remember, the request was to address salary of the researcher position and then add a recorder position. So you weren't adding 2 positions, you were adding 1, but the other request was to increase the salary allotment. So it was an addition of 1 position, and that was all
So we
accommodated.
got both of them. We got
Okay. Sure, thank you. Can you explain the circuit attorney's budget one more time, her request?
Okay.
Because it really doesn't make sense on paper.
Okay.
Or it doesn't make sense to me, just trying to fully understand this. So it went from $375,000 to 75 to 300,000, now back to 75?
Let me,
Or,
if I may, this is the line item detail for their Prop P budget. Oh, you got it. Okay, on page 135. Okay, if you look at the professional services, they're 5659. And you can see their original request was for $300,000. Well, we are budgeting $375,000 in that account.
Okay.
And so what this amendment does is move the $75,000 into a computer services account instead, to help address some of the computer
Paul,
services.
what page is that again?
That's 135 of your line item detail.
Line item 135.
So you're down here.
Okay, 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 I just couldn't see it, I'm sorry. I was very confused.
So you're taking, so basically, we're taking money out of one,
We're
we're taking the
allocating
money out of one pocket and putting it in the other.
we're allocating money that was over and above the original request in that account and moving it to computer services, yes.
So we're taking money out of one pocket and putting in the other. Just a question, I wonder how many other departments or offices have particular needs that's over budgeted, and have we moved the money out 30 accounts to give to other departments that's in need too? Or have we only done this to the circuit attorney's office? Or has the mayor only done this to the circuit attorney's office?
There's any number of requests that we haven't granted in the budget process.
Well, I'm gonna say the mayor, because it's for a fact that when the secretary sent our budget over, the mayor denied it. It wasn't the president, it wasn't the comptroller. They both were in agreement that the secretary needed more money. Oh, well, I'm happy to tell you, Alderman. I heard the remarks, so.
Oh, I thought E&A is the one that votes on this.
Yeah, that sounds
Not
good on
just the
paper.
mayor.
Sounds good on paper, look better on TV.
It's the truth.
So how many other departments have money that's over budgeted too? I mean, because we haven't given the secretary anything that she has asked for, and we're taking money again just we're taking money that's already allocated to her, saying use this money, and I don't think that that's sufficient enough.
Which budget or which department is over allocated at the moment?
Pretty sure all of them, besides the Board of Aldermen. And the sheriff.
All the departments are over budgeted? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
You should be. I wasn't asking you. I was asking the director.
All right, I can, if you look at the total request, and I'm just looking at the request column, there was $544 million in requests, and we ended up with $520 million budget. So you can know that we've reduced from requests over $24 million from just to get to this point. Now, whether some of that is necessary, or whether that's something the departments would like to see, that's debatable, but that's part of the process of going through the budget each year. You don't get your full request.
He needs to start with
Yeah.
like he did with us. He wasn't in the room.
Yeah, Alderman Mohammed, maybe you weren't present when Paul started his presentation, and maybe you might start with that from square one as far as what we did get and didn't get. And I believe in regard, if I understand correctly, Paul, in the circuit attorney's office, it's money you really hadn't planned on. It's more above what you had planned on getting. So, and that
That's correct.
You moved the money that you hadn't planned on having into what they're requesting.
That's correct.
Okay. So it wasn't money that was over budgeted. It was just money. It's.
Yes, that's money that's set by formula of the ordinance.
Yes.
Right.
And it's 1.6 million
Effectively, more sales tax came in.
came in.
Yeah. And there should be more now with the blues going as far as who's going.
Yeah, but
Which did allow more to agree to her budget.
That's correct.
Either way it go, all we're doing is moving money around. We're not really
Money
giving
we
her
didn't
the
have, though.
We're not giving her the money that she needs to be sufficient, but we have money for every other office and department to do duplicative services in the city that does absolutely nothing for North St. Louis on investment. But we don't have money to get a circuit attorney to run a real prosecutor attorney's office. It's disappointing to me. It's not your fault, Paul. I blame E&A, particularly I blame the mayor. It's not your fault. I think you do a fantastic job. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman. And Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
You'll be, you are, yes.
if I may,
You may, go ahead.
I just wanted to remark that, in my understanding of this budget, the vast majority of departments are shortchanged. I look at critical services to my community, like towing derelict cars, inspecting buildings. those types of services that are preventative in nature, keeping our communities clean, have been continuously cut year after year. It's every department in the city of St. Louis that doesn't have what they need to function correctly. Across the board, from providing mowers to our parks department, to basic maintenance of our general buildings. Look at the building that we're sitting in right now. It generally leaks in the room in which we debate our bills. So it isn't just, we don't, to my understanding, have duplicative services. We have a significant shortfall, and our budget is continuing to shrink year after year compared to the expenses and the growing needs that our city has. I want to add one thing. I am very disappointed in the compromise made in the building division. We cut $300,000 from the demolition fund with the intention of having some preventative measures put in place to prevent demolitions by way of holding property owners' feet to the fire for keeping their properties up to building codes. And I think that this short change of swapping out $300,000 in prevention and building demolition and building degradation and derelict and abandoned properties from $300,000 to $50,000 is really an insult to our communities that have to live amongst significant vacancy, buildings falling down. We do not do our due diligence in proactive building code enforcement in the city of St. Louis. And I am woefully disappointed that we took $250,000 out of that proposed budget by this committee for the prevention of buildings getting to the point of needing to be demolished. And I think that's a real short-sighted reallocation of funds, and one that I think we will pay for by way of increased need for a demo budget in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Alderwoman Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for what you have done. This is my second round on this. I'm not as seasoned as Marlene and yourself, but I learned a lot this year, so I really appreciate you. Paul, I appreciate you. In reality, it's just like your budget at home. Some things you can do and some things you can't. So we know our city is striving to try to do better, and I just hope that we can move on and do what we need to do.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Clark Hubbard?
No, wait,
Well,
your
your
turn.
turn.
I'm sorry, your turn, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Paul, Mr. Payne, for not just today, but yesterday. I appreciate you taking the time out to explain it to me again. Like Alderman Boyd said, when you're new to it, it's a lot of things that are confusing and you don't understand. And I can appreciate and I can feel for my colleague from the 21st Ward and his concerns and his position that he took. And when you're trying to understand something and process something, a lot of the condescending remarks and undertones don't help the situation. So I appreciate just a little more morale in dealing with the situation, because it is hard. Because again, I understand some people didn't get what they wanted, some people did. But there were things that people might have really strongly felt that could have been done differently. And I think that we all should respect each other's positions in that place. So I just have one question. Can anyone else speak, or just we can only speak during this meeting?
Yeah, we're not. Mr.
Nobody
Payne's
else will
our-
speak.
our-
And then, if I heard you correctly, there's no more additions that we can
No,
make?
there is not.
Right now, we can only say no to their recommendations,
We can try and cut something if you want.
cut, but other than that, that's it. There's no, this is where it is now. So I understand his frustration. So, but thank you. This has been a good process for me. I'm glad I got on here. Thank you for all your time and all your patience with me, Mr. Payne.
Alderman McCarroll, do you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to address the 300,000 plus the 40,000 were my two cuts. And they were not taken, if you remember, the demolition is way more than it has ever been. I think it's upwards of $8 million. And this was over that. That money wasn't taken out to put back inspectors. In fact, on the first, it was just taken out to add to the pot of how much money we had to spend. So to say it was taken out of there to put back the inspectors wasn't so. my point was, as we discussed it, it failed to go, the first go-around, to add 3 inspectors. And on the second go-around, because I voted no so that I could do voting on the prevailing side, we were able to put back at least the 1 position. So to say that that money was taken from there, that money was actually used in other parts of what we were asking for, whether it was communications or whatever. So it wasn't specifically taken out and said, gee, we want this 300 put for inspectors. And again, on the first go-around, it didn't pass, and I was the one that helped get it passed. So.
Okay, Madam Vice Head, she want to make some comments, so we'll let.
Right. I have a lot of concern about the circuit attorney's office. But here's how you have to look at things. We were fortunate enough in that proposition to allocate additional funds for that office. That's something that would have normally never happened. And we know that's a given. That is a given. It's on, and we do not have control over how our, that office spends the funds. And that's a good thing too. You hear me say that all the time. The least we can be out of making some decisions, the better off we are. So, let's know that it's going to increase because the economics are trying to increase in the city of St. Louis. So every year it's going to be more and more money going into the circuit attorney's office. But don't give up because we are creative. We've been very creative in solving problems and we need to look at other opportunities. And so that's where I say we do. We come together, we look for other opportunities to put additional funds there. But right now, the 1.6 million that's coming in, we have no control over that. So that's a good thing. And it can be spent as needed. So don't give up hope. And it's not totally decimated or anything like that. So we're gonna continue to work and support the circuit attorney's office.
All right, thank you. I just thank all the members of the committee for all your time going through this process. We, as I understand, Paul, is a $20+ million, shortfall what we requested. So, in the mortal words of Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want, but we try to get what we need. So it's been a process much a little easier. I think they called this budget vanilla. Last year's was Rocky Road, as I understood. So with that, I would entertain a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
It's just to pass it out to the full
Yes.
board now, so we're not sending it back. Okay.
What'd you say?
Well, it's to pass it out
Just
versus
make a
like,
motion to
so
approve.
no more change. It
Right.
goes over, that's,
We have to, it's not as amended?
yeah, as amended.
I shall make a formal.
Okay.
Yeah,
I shall make a formal motion
For the record.
to approve Board Bill number 1 as amended.
And I'll second
Second.
board bill, I'll second it, don't matter.
All right.
Or anybody.
Sharita, roll call, please.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Chairman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
It's 9 aye votes and 1 present.
All right. With that, we will, as far as, we'll excuse, all of them were present, so we are fine there. At that point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Previous roll?
Thank you.
No objection?
I would
Thank you
object,
very
but
much.
I'm okay with
It's
it.
okay.